His talent was one of the things, but he was a good person too. He loved people. He gave to charities.
For decades, fans and critics alike have speculated about the hidden truths behind Michael Jackson's enigmatic life and career. Now, at the age of 94, Katherine Jackson, the matriarch of the legendary Jackson family, is breaking her silence. In an unexpected revelation, she finally confirms what many have long suspected, but could never fully prove. As she shares her insights, the world is once again drawn into the mysterious and fascinating life of the King of Pop, uncovering secrets that have been guarded for years. When it comes to Michael Jackson, people often think of plastic surgery. Some people believe that his facial disfigurement is the result of excessive plastic surgery, a fact that his mother herself has admitted. On a recent episode of The Oprah Winfrey Show, Katherine Jackson, the mother of the late Michael Jackson, offered a candid revelation about her son's struggles with plastic surgery. For years, Michael Jackson's appearance had been a subject of widespread speculation and scrutiny, with many questions surrounding the reasons behind his numerous cosmetic procedures. Katherine Jackson's statements on Oprah provided a new perspective on the motivations behind her son's transformations, shedding light on a deeply personal and complex issue. Katherine Jackson confirmed what had long been suspected but never fully articulated, that Michael Jackson was, indeed, addicted to plastic surgery. This admission came with a significant revelation about the root cause of Jackson's desire to undergo multiple procedures. According to Katherine, the primary motivation behind Jackson's cosmetic surgeries was his battle with vitiligo, a skin condition that causes loss of pigmentation, leading to uneven skin tone and patches of white skin. Contrary to the speculation that Jackson's surgeries were driven by a desire to lighten his skin or conform to certain beauty standards, Katherine Jackson emphasized that her son's intent was to manage the visual impact of vitiligo. "He didn't want to start looking like a spotted cow," he said, Katherine recounted during her interview with Oprah. This comment highlights Jackson's concern with maintaining a uniform appearance despite the progressive nature of his condition. The desire to conceal the symptoms of vitiligo, according to Katherine, was a driving factor in Jackson's decision to undergo cosmetic procedures. However, Katherine also acknowledged the dark side of Jackson's journey with plastic surgery. She admitted that her son's use of cosmetic surgery had gone beyond mere medical necessity or cosmetic enhancement and had evolved into an addiction. Katherine noted that Jackson had undergone more than 2 surgeries and described his embarrassment about the procedures, suggesting that his private struggles were compounded by the public's relentless scrutiny. "I hear that people get addicted to plastic surgery, and I think that's what happened to him," she said, reflecting on the addictive nature of cosmetic enhancements and how it might have contributed to her son's ongoing surgeries. The notion of plastic surgery addiction is significant, as it implies a psychological dependency on altering one's appearance, often driven by deeper issues of self-esteem and identity. Katherine Jackson's acknowledgement of this addiction provides a more nuanced understanding of Michael Jackson's relationship with surgery. It suggests that his numerous procedures were not solely driven by vanity or a desire to conform to societal beauty standards, but also by a profound need to address the visible effects of his medical condition and possibly other underlying insecurities. In another shocking revelation, Michael Jackson's mother said she was tricked by her son. Did this really happen? According to court documents and a sworn statement filed in court, Katherine Jackson was deceived into traveling to an Arizona spa under the pretense of attending a concert by her sons in New Mexico. This revelation sheds light on a series of troubling events that led to her being out of contact with her grandson and the subsequent public and legal ramifications. The details emerged following an extended period of confusion and concern about Katherine Jackson's whereabouts. For 10 days, the Jackson family matriarch was effectively isolated from her grandchildren, Prince, Paris, and Blanket Jackson, whom she had been raising since the death of their father, Michael Jackson, 3 years prior. During this time, Katherine Jackson was cut off from all means of communication. Her cell phone and iPad were confiscated upon her arrival at the spa, and both the TV and phone in her room were disabled. This setup prevented her from contacting her family or learning about the public controversy that had erupted due to her disappearance. The situation quickly escalated into a major public issue when a missing person report was filed, drawing significant media attention. The absence of Katherine Jackson from her grandchildren's lives for such an extended period raised alarms, and the guardianship arrangement she had with Michael Jackson's children was temporarily suspended. The Jackson family and the public were left in a state of confusion, with questions swirling about her location and the reasons behind her sudden disappearance. In her sworn statement, Katherine Jackson expressed profound disappointment and frustration with the individuals she had entrusted to manage her affairs. "At the time, I trusted people to be honest with me," she explained. Katherine's trust was betrayed, as she was misled about the nature of her travel and kept in the dark about the mounting concerns at home. She revealed that the people responsible for her well-being included her own children, Janet, Jermaine, Randy, and Rebby Jackson, suggesting that the decision to isolate her and withhold information about her grandchildren was not made without internal family influence. The circumstances of Katherine Jackson's disappearance raised several questions about the dynamics within the Jackson family. While her children Janet, Jermaine, Randy, and Rebby were implicated in the events leading to her isolation, other siblings such as LaToya, Tito, Marlon, and Jackie Jackson claimed ignorance of her whereabouts and the nature of the situation. This disparity in knowledge among the Jackson siblings highlighted the internal family discord and lack of cohesive communication during the crisis. In a dramatic turn of events, Katherine Jackson, the matriarch of the Jackson family and the legal guardian of Michael Jackson's children, was reinstated as their guardian following a court hearing on Thursday. This decision came after a detailed explanation provided in her sworn statement shed light on the confusing circumstances surrounding her recent disappearance. The ordeal began on July 14th, when Katherine Jackson was scheduled to embark on a journey in an RV to attend the Jacksons' Unity show in Albuquerque, New Mexico, scheduled for the following Tuesday. However, events took an unexpected turn when a doctor arrived at her home under the pretense of checking on her health. According to Katherine's statement, the doctor claimed to have been in contact with her longtime personal physician and was sent in his stead due to the physician's unavailability. Katherine Jackson, trusting the authenticity of the situation and believing that the doctor's visit was arranged at the request of her personal physician, decided to follow the medical advice given. The doctor advised her that flying would be preferable to driving the RV to New Mexico, suggesting it would be better for her health. Following what she understood to be the doctor's professional recommendation, Katherine Jackson boarded a flight rather than making the journey in the motorhome. In a detailed and alarming account of Katherine Jackson's recent ordeal, new revelations have emerged about the role of Dr. Alan Metzger in the events leading up to her disappearance. According to statements made by Katherine Jackson's lawyer, Sandra Ribera, Dr. Metzger was not sent by Jackson's personal physician, contrary to what Katherine Jackson initially believed. This clarification has added another layer of complexity to the situation, revealing that Dr. Metzger's involvement was not as straightforward as initially thought. Dr. Alan Metzger, identified as the physician who purportedly advised Katherine Jackson to change her travel plans, was previously associated with the Jackson family. His connection to the family dates back nearly 2 decades, during which he treated Michael Jackson for insomnia. This relationship was brought to light during Dr. Metzger's testimony at Dr. Conrad Murray's involuntary manslaughter trial, where he discussed his long-term medical involvement with Michael Jackson. Despite this history, Dr. Metzger was not officially connected to Katherine Jackson's personal physician at the time of this incident, as confirmed by Ribera. The situation took a troubling turn when Katherine Jackson's flight, instead of landing in New Mexico as planned, was rerouted to Tucson, Arizona. Upon arrival, she was taken to the Miraval Spa, a luxury wellness retreat. Katherine Jackson's affidavit provides a detailed account of the conditions she faced at the spa. According to her statement, her phone and iPad were confiscated, and the telephone in her room was rendered inoperative, preventing her from making any calls. Additionally, the television in her room had no picture, and despite multiple requests, it was never repaired. This enforced isolation cut Katherine Jackson off from any means of communication with the outside world, including her family. Unaware of the mounting concern and public distress over her whereabouts, Katherine Jackson was left in the dark about the efforts of her family, particularly her granddaughter Paris Jackson, who took to Twitter to post desperate pleas for help in locating her grandmother. On July 22, 2012, Paris Jackson, then 14 years old, took to Twitter with urgent and distressing messages about her grandmother, Katherine Jackson. Paris tweeted, "Yes, my grandmother is missing, and I haven't spoken with her in a week. I want her home now." This was part of a broader public and familial crisis, as Katherine Jackson had been out of touch for an extended period. The missing person report filed by her nephew, Trent Jackson, hours before Paris's tweets, had already triggered a widespread search and significant media attention. Katherine Jackson, in her affidavit, recounted a distressing moment that hinted something was amiss. During her time at the Miraval Spa, she woke up one morning to the sound of a television broadcast, despite the fact that her TV screen was showing no picture. The broadcast reported that Katherine Jackson was missing, an alarming update that only deepened her confusion and concern. Despite this unsettling realization, Katherine Jackson was still unable to connect with her family. She recounted that when she inquired about her grandchildren, Prince, Paris, and Blanket Jackson, she was reassured by those around her that there had been communication with others regarding the well-being of her grandchildren. However, Katherine was never informed that her grandchildren, particularly Paris, were actively trying to reach her. Katherine Jackson's affidavit revealed the emotional and psychological toll of the situation. The lack of communication with her family was not due to any neglect or intention to stay out of touch, but rather the result of the confusing and deceptive circumstances she found herself in. She stated unequivocally that had she been aware of her grandchildren's distress and attempts to contact her, she would have taken immediate action to reestablish communication. The situation surrounding Katherine Jackson's disappearance highlights a severe breakdown in communication and trust within the Jackson family. It became evident that Katherine Jackson was kept in the dark about the growing public concern and her family's efforts to locate her. The failure to inform her about her grandchildren's attempts to reach her exacerbated the sense of isolation and distress she experienced during this period. The Miraval Resort, where Katherine Jackson had been staying, did not respond immediately to CNN's inquiries regarding their involvement in the events surrounding her disappearance. This lack of comment left many questions unanswered about how the situation unfolded at the luxury wellness retreat. When Katherine Jackson finally returned home on July 26th, she was greeted with a whirlwind of information. Her grandchildren, Prince, Paris, and Blanket Jackson, briefed her on the dramatic developments that had occurred while she was out of contact. They filled her in on the global media frenzy, the missing person report filed by her nephew Trent Jackson, and the distress expressed by Paris and other family members. Prince Jackson took to Twitter to express his emotions upon learning about the circumstances his grandmother had faced. His tweet conveyed a mix of relief and frustration. "Although I am happy my grandma was returned, after speaking with her I realized how misguided and how badly she was lied to," he wrote. "I'm really angry and hurt." His public statement underscored the deep sense of betrayal and emotional turmoil experienced by the Jackson family as a result of the incident. The situation had left the Jackson family grappling with a profound sense of violation and confusion. Katherine Jackson's forced isolation and the misleading information she had received while at the Miraval Spa had significantly impacted her and her family. The revelation that she had been misled about the intentions and actions of those around her added to the emotional weight of the ordeal. In the aftermath of the incident, Katherine Jackson was making plans for another trip later in the month. This time, however, her grandchildren would accompany her. The family's upcoming journey to Gary, Indiana, was set to be a more positive occasion, a celebration of Michael Jackson's 54th birthday. The trip was intended as a way for the family to come together and honor Michael Jackson's legacy, providing a moment of unity and healing amid the recent turmoil. This will probably be the saddest chapter in Katherine Jackson's life as she shares about Michael Jackson's death. Reportedly, she took the stand in a Los Angeles courtroom as part of the wrongful death lawsuit she filed against AEG Live, the concert promoter responsible for Michael Jackson's ill-fated This Is It tour. This lawsuit was driven by Katherine's quest for answers about the circumstances surrounding her son's death. The legal proceedings had been ongoing for several months, and Katherine Jackson's testimony was expected to be one of the final pieces of the case. As she began her testimony on a Friday and was set to conclude it the following Monday, her presence in the courtroom was a poignant reminder of the personal stakes involved in the trial. Katherine Jackson had been present for most of the 51 days of testimony prior to her own, sitting in the front row and absorbing the detailed recounting of the events leading up to Michael Jackson's death. Katherine Jackson's primary motivation for pursuing the wrongful death suit was her need to uncover the truth about what truly happened to her son. Her testimony underscored the emotional toll the trial had taken on her, particularly as she had to endure the critical and often disparaging remarks made about Michael Jackson during the proceedings. "The most difficult thing is to sit here in the court and listen to all the bad things they say about my son," she testified, her voice reflecting the deep personal pain she felt. The lawsuit against AEG Live centered on allegations that the company was negligent in its role as the promoter of Michael Jackson's comeback concerts. Katherine Jackson's testimony aimed to challenge the portrayal of her son presented by the defense. She specifically addressed an email from an AEG Live executive that characterized Michael Jackson as lazy, a portrayal she vehemently disputed. "A lot of the facts that have been said are not the truth," she asserted, refuting the claims made in the email and defending her son's work ethic and dedication. In the courtroom drama surrounding the wrongful death lawsuit filed by Katherine Jackson against AEG Live, one particular aspect of her testimony drew significant attention. Katherine Jackson expressed profound distress over an email sent by AEG Live's parent company's general counsel, which referred to her son, Michael Jackson, as a freak. This email was sent on the very day that top executives from AEG Live were scheduled to visit Michael Jackson's home to finalize the contract for his highly anticipated This Is It tour. Katherine Jackson's reaction to the email was one of deep hurt and indignation. She emphasized the gravity of the situation by pointing out that Michael Jackson, who was no longer alive to defend himself, could not respond to such disparaging remarks. "He's not here to speak for himself," she said, highlighting her own role in defending her son's legacy. Her testimony was framed as a heartfelt attempt to be a voice for Michael Jackson, given his absence and the negative portrayals he faced. The courtroom atmosphere during Katherine Jackson's testimony was charged with emotional intensity. Jurors leaned forward as her lawyer presented video footage of Michael Jackson performing as a child, a tactic designed to remind the court of his early talent and charm, countering the negative image painted by some aspects of the defense's case. This visual evidence aimed to humanize Michael Jackson and reinforce the narrative of his lifelong dedication to his craft. The lawsuit filed by Katherine Jackson, on behalf of herself and Michael Jackson's 3 children, sought to hold AEG Live accountable for the singer's death. The core contention was that AEG Live was liable for hiring, retaining, or supervising Dr. Conrad Murray, the physician whose treatment practices were linked to Michael Jackson's death. Dr. Murray was convicted of involuntary manslaughter in 2011, a verdict that underscored the legal and moral questions surrounding his role in Michael Jackson's life. AEG Live, the promoter of Michael Jackson's ill-fated This Is It tour, contended that it was not responsible for the actions of Dr. Conrad Murray, the physician who administered the fatal dose of propofol to Michael Jackson. According to AEG Live's defense, the company had no control over or knowledge of the dangerous treatments administered by Murray in the privacy of Jackson's bedroom. They argued that Michael Jackson himself chose and controlled Dr. Murray, not AEG Live. Dr. Conrad Murray's role in the case was central to the defense's strategy. Murray had admitted to giving Jackson nightly infusions of propofol, a powerful surgical anesthetic, which the coroner determined was the cause of Jackson's death. AEG Live's lawyers maintained that they were unaware of the risky procedures Murray was performing and therefore could not be held liable for Jackson's death. The courtroom exchanges became particularly charged during cross-examinations. Katherine Jackson, in her testimony, was questioned by AEG Live's attorney, Marvin Putnam, about various aspects of the lawsuit. Putnam's approach included challenging Katherine Jackson's decisions and the motives behind certain legal actions. For instance, he questioned her about the decision to initially include, and then later drop, show director Kenny Ortega as a defendant in the lawsuit. When confronted by Putnam, Katherine Jackson initially remained silent, demonstrating a moment of palpable tension. When prompted to explain her decision, she curtly responded, "Forget it," expressing frustration with the line of questioning. The exchange highlighted the personal and emotional stakes for Katherine Jackson, who was deeply invested in seeking justice for her son. Her statement, "Because I want to know what really happened to my son," underscored the primary motivation driving her legal actions. It was evident that the pursuit of truth and accountability was central to her quest, reflecting the broader emotional and familial impact of Michael Jackson's death. In another significant moment, Katherine Jackson was asked how she felt about the probing and personal questions posed to her during a dozen hours of deposition testimony. Her response was revealing of her emotional state. "It makes me feel real bad, because my son was a very good person." She expressed her distress over the intense scrutiny and the manner in which her son was portrayed. Katherine Jackson defended her son's character, highlighting his generosity and philanthropic efforts. She mentioned that Michael Jackson was recognized in the Guinness Book of World Records for his charitable contributions, emphasizing that he was a person of exceptional kindness and integrity. As the trial unfolded, AEG Live's attorney, Marvin Putnam, faced the delicate task of discrediting Katherine Jackson's testimony without appearing insensitive to a grieving mother. This challenge became particularly apparent during an intense exchange when Putnam questioned Katherine Jackson about her decision to initially include and later drop show director Kenny Ortega as a defendant in the lawsuit. During this line of questioning, the courtroom atmosphere grew tense. When Putnam pressed Jackson for an explanation, she abruptly responded with, "Forget it," signaling her reluctance to engage further on the topic. Putnam, in a bid to clarify, asked, "Forget what, ma'am?" However, Jackson remained silent, staring at Putnam for nearly a minute, creating a palpable moment of tension. The courtroom fell into a hushed silence, with jurors and spectators alike sensing the emotional weight of the exchange. In an attempt to ease the situation, Putnam offered to reread the question, but Jackson curtly replied, "No, it wouldn't be helpful." Her response underscored the difficulty she faced in revisiting the legal decisions that had led to this point in the trial. Recognizing the sensitivity of the matter, the judge intervened, ordering the question stricken from the record. noting that the answer involved privileged discussions with her legal team. This incident highlighted the emotional toll the trial was taking on Katherine Jackson. After the lunch break, she returned to the stand but quickly indicated to the judge that she was tired. Her exhaustion was apparent after only a few more minutes of questioning by Putnam. Aware of her fatigue, the judge decided to send the jurors home 2 hours early, allowing Katherine Jackson to resume her testimony the following Monday. This decision underscored the importance of her well-being in a trial that was as much about the emotional impact on the Jackson family as it was about the legal arguments being presented. The trial was not just a legal proceeding, it was a deeply personal and emotionally charged battle for Katherine Jackson and her family. The outcome held significant implications for how Michael Jackson's death would be understood in the public eye, and whether AEG Live would be held accountable for their alleged role in the circumstances leading to his death. If the jurors ultimately found AEG Live liable, they would be responsible for determining the damages to be awarded to the Jackson family. These damages would not only reflect the loss of the mother's and children's relationship with Michael Jackson, but also consider the vast amounts of money he was unable to earn because his life was tragically cut short. The financial stakes were enormous, and the emotional stakes were even higher. The trial was poised to enter a new phase, one that promised to be even more contentious and challenging. AEG Live's defense team, true to their opening statements, began introducing some of the most controversial and painful aspects of Michael Jackson's life as part of their strategy. This included references to the allegations of inappropriate conduct involving minors charges that had plagued Jackson's career and the infamous 2002 incident where he dangled his infant son over a Berlin hotel balcony. By bringing up these past scandals, the defense sought to paint a more complex and perhaps less sympathetic picture of Jackson in the eyes of the jurors. The courtroom drama surrounding the wrongful death lawsuit against AEG Live took on an even more poignant tone as jurors were presented with a video deposition of Paris Jackson, the 15-year-old daughter of the late Michael Jackson. The deposition, recorded in March, offered a rare and intimate glimpse into the private world of the Jackson family, as well as the deeply personal impact of Michael Jackson's death on his children. Paris Jackson's appearance in the trial, even via video, was a significant moment. Her testimony provided insight into her father's plans for the This Is It tour, the ill-fated series of concerts that was meant to be Michael Jackson's grand comeback, but instead became a prelude to his tragic death. AEG Live's lawyer, Marvin Putnam, conducted the questioning, and his approach was methodical, aiming to clarify what Paris knew about the tour and how much information her father had shared with her and her siblings. In the video, Putnam began by asking Paris what her father had told her about the tour's duration. Paris, with a blend of teenage innocence and the solemnity that comes from having endured so much loss at such a young age, responded, "I assume a long time since it was a world tour, but those usually last a long time." Her response was measured, indicating that while she was aware of the magnitude of the tour, she may not have fully grasped all its details at the time. Putnam pressed further, asking Paris how she understood that it was a world tour. Without hesitation, Paris replied, "Because he told us." Her straightforward answer underscored the close bond she shared with her father and her trust in the information he provided her. This bond was a recurring theme throughout her deposition, as she often referred to what her father had told her about various aspects of his life and career. When Putnam asked Paris to elaborate on what exactly her father had told her, she simply stated that we were going around the world on tour. This statement, though brief, was loaded with meaning. It highlighted Michael Jackson's intention to involve his children in his life's work, bringing them along on what would have been an extraordinary global journey. For Paris, this tour was not just about her father's return to the stage. It was about being together as a family, traveling the world and sharing in his success. In the courtroom testimony regarding the wrongful death lawsuit filed by Michael Jackson's family against AEG Live, certified public accountant Arthur Irk presented a compelling financial analysis that underscored the immense earning potential of the pop icon's planned This Is It tour. Irk, who has extensive experience managing and auditing the business affairs of top artists, provided an estimate of the staggering financial impact that Jackson's untimely death had on his potential earnings. According to Irk, Jackson was poised to embark on a global tour that would have solidified his status as one of the most successful and lucrative performers in the history of music. Irk testified that he was reasonably certain Michael Jackson would have performed at least 260 shows across various continents, including Europe, Asia, South America, North America, and Australia. This extensive tour, planned over 3 years, was projected to generate an astounding $890 million in revenue from ticket sales alone. Irk's estimates were not based on mere speculation, but were supported by concrete data, including the unprecedented demand for tickets to Jackson's London performances at the O2 Arena. AEG Live's initial announcement of 50 shows at the O2 Arena in London sparked an overwhelming response from fans worldwide. In March 2009, AEG Live put 750,000 tickets on sale for 31 shows, and within just 2 hours, all tickets were sold out. This rapid sellout was a clear indication of the pent-up demand to see Michael Jackson perform live, despite the controversies that had surrounded him in the years since his last tour in 1998. The demand was so high that AEG Live executives quickly realized the potential for even more shows, leading to a flurry of internal communications about adding additional performances. In an email exchange, AEG Live co-CEO Paul Gongaware expressed his excitement about the overwhelming demand, writing, "Dude, we're going to sell out a ridiculous amount of tickets." This enthusiasm was shared by AEG Live CEO Randy Phillips, who noted that enough buyers had registered to sell out another 100 shows. Given the extraordinary response, Jackson's manager approved an additional 19 shows, bringing the total to 50, all of which sold out rapidly. Irk's testimony emphasized that the 50 shows in London were just the beginning. He asserted that Jackson could have easily sold out 10 million tickets for the rest of the world if additional shows were scheduled in other regions. The global appetite for Jackson's live performances was insatiable, and Irk projected that the entire tour would have been a resounding success, further cementing Jackson's legacy as a legendary entertainer. The courtroom drama intensified as AEG Live's lawyer Sabrina Strong confronted certified public accountant Arthur Irk about his financial projections for Jackson's This Is It tour. Irk had previously testified that the tour would have been a record-breaking event, generating nearly $1.5 billion in revenue from ticket sales, endorsements, and sponsorships. His calculations suggested that Jackson would have performed 260 shows worldwide as part of the This Is It tour, and continued with additional tours before retiring at age 66. Strong, however, questioned the credibility of Irk's estimates. She asked him directly if any other artist had ever made as much money on a single tour as Irk claimed Jackson would have made. Irk's response was unequivocal. "No," he said. "This would have been a record-breaking world tour." His confidence in the projections underscored the unique nature of Michael Jackson's career and the unprecedented demand for his performances, despite the controversies and challenges he faced in the later years of his life. Irk's projections were based on the extraordinary success of the initial ticket sales for the London shows. AEG Live had originally announced 31 shows at the O2 Arena, but due to overwhelming demand, they quickly added more dates, eventually reaching a total of 50 sold-out performances. The rapid sellout of 750,000 tickets in just a few hours demonstrated that Jackson's star power was still very much alive, and Irk believed that this momentum could have carried Jackson through additional tours across Europe, Asia, South America, North America, and Australia. However, AEG Live's legal team, led by lawyer Marvin Putnam, was not convinced by Irk's optimistic projections. Putnam labeled Irk's estimates as a creation, a fabrication, arguing that they were unrealistic and inflated. He pointed out that Jackson had not toured in over a decade and questioned the likelihood of Jackson making more money in his 50s than he did during the peak of his fame in the 1980s and 1990s. Putnam's challenge was based on the idea that Jackson's best touring years were behind him and that the financial success Irk predicted was improbable given Jackson's age and physical condition. To further support their argument, AEG Live presented video evidence from Katherine Jackson's deposition. In the clip, Katherine recalled a conversation where her son joked that he didn't want to be moonwalking on stage at 50. This statement was used by AEG Live to argue that Jackson himself had no intention of continuing his performing career beyond the 50 shows in London. Putnam emphasized that the This Is It tour was meant to be a farewell, a final opportunity for fans to see Jackson perform live. He suggested that the tour's title, This Is It, was a clear indication that Jackson was planning to retire from the stage after these performances. Katherine Jackson, however, countered this narrative during her testimony. She explained that her son's remark was made in jest and did not reflect his true intentions. "Michael said that quite a few years back, and he was joking," she testified. "I thought it was funny, and most of us said things like that. I used to think 50 was very old." Katherine's testimony highlighted that Jackson had signed a 3-year contract with AEG Live for his comeback tour at the age of 50, which included plans for him to continue performing some of his most iconic dance moves, including the moonwalk during his performances of Billie Jean. Putnam's argument rested on the assertion that the This Is It tour was always intended to be Jackson's final performance series. He emphasized that the enormous response to the announcement of the London shows was due to the perception that this was Jackson's last chance to perform live. "We announced that we're going to have one tour in London, that's what was announced, and it was called This Is It, meaning in London, this show is it," Putnam argued. "This show is it. This is the last thing he's ever going to do." He suggested that the success of the ticket sales was driven by fans' understanding that these performances would be Jackson's final curtain call. As the trial neared its conclusion, Putnam vowed to reveal what he described as the truth behind the events leading up to Jackson's death. He dismissed the Jackson family's lawsuit as ridiculous and maintained that AEG Live was not responsible for Jackson's death. The company's defense centered on the claim that it was Jackson, not AEG Live, who hired Dr. Conrad Murray, and that the company had no knowledge of the dangerous treatments Murray was administering to Jackson in the privacy of his home. The defense team made a decisive announcement on Wednesday. They would not be calling Dr. Conrad Murray to testify. This development came after weeks of speculation that Murray, who is currently serving a 4-year sentence for involuntary manslaughter in connection with Michael Jackson's death, might take the stand. Murray's potential testimony had been a looming question throughout the trial. His involvement in the case is central, as he was the physician who administered the fatal dose of propofol that led to Jackson's death on June 25, 2009. The Jackson family has argued that AEG Live is liable for Jackson's death because they hired, retained, or supervised Murray during the preparation for the This Is It tour. AEG Live, on the other hand, has maintained that Jackson himself chose and controlled Murray and that the company had no knowledge of the dangerous treatments the doctor was providing. Despite the importance of Murray's role in the case, AEG Live's lead attorney, Marvin Putnam, confirmed to the judge that the defense team had no intention of calling him to testify. "I have no intention of calling him myself unless it's requested, Your Honor," Putnam said, responding to the judge's inquiry about their plans. This statement effectively ended any remaining speculation about whether Murray would take the stand. The decision not to call Murray was likely influenced by the sworn statement he provided to both the Jackson and AEG Live legal teams before the trial began. In this statement, Murray made it clear that he would invoke his constitutional right against self-incrimination if subpoenaed, refusing to answer any questions. This protection, guaranteed by the Fifth Amendment, is often invoked by individuals facing criminal charges or those who have already been convicted to avoid providing testimony that could be used against them in future legal proceedings. What do you think about the revelations about Michael Jackson's mother and other members about him? Leave us your comments in the section below. We hope you have found this helpful video. Don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you like it. Thank you for watching this and see you in the next videos. Goodbye.